this will be like my what do you call it? When it's like the last message somebody sees of somebody. I don't know. I don't know what you call that. It's not a will. It's well, I guess it kind of would be a will. Probably won't even get anybody here. I don't know if anybody will ever see this. If you're struggling with mental health, it's definitely good to have friends and family that can help you. But sometimes friends and family aren't very helpful. My dad died in 2018 of brain cancer. And I didn't know him very well growing up until after he was diagnosed with brain cancer. I started to grow a relationship with him, and he became my best friend. And I had him from the age of, and I mean him, the better version of him. I had him until the age of 18 or 17 when he was diagnosed, until he died in, he was diagnosed in 2014, so I was 12, 13, 14. I was 16, I think. Was I? I don't remember. It'll lose me now. Dates and years. He died in 2018, I know that. And he was alive for 5 years, so 76 and 50. So he was diagnosed in 2013. And I was 15, I think. 16, 17, 18, 19. Yeah, he died when I was like 21. So that makes sense. But anyways, he was a really smart individual. He had Asperger's, and he was very, very smart. Not just mathematically, but he thought very deeply, and he always had an answer to stuff. And I really need that guy right now, because he would definitely have an answer that I would listen to. Even if I didn't want to hear it, I would listen to it. And all the people that I talk to now tell me things I don't want to hear, but I don't want to listen to it. It's like, if he said it, I would listen to it. But I don't have him anymore. So I guess I'm just going to be hard-headed. So I guess I should tell you why I'm making this video. My wife had, or well, let me go further than that. I married my wife in 2017 in October 29th, and she was pregnant with my son. And my father was at a hospice house, so he couldn't really be transported because his brain cancer had metastasized into his bones. So they had a chapel at the hospice house, and so we had the marriage at the hospice house so that my father could be there. And when I asked my wife to marry me, I did it expecting to be with someone for the rest of my life, and because I loved her, and I knew I did. But as I sat there talking to my dad and everything was getting ready, and I was fixing to go stand up on the pulpit and wait for her to walk down the aisle, and when that time came, after about 15 or 20 minutes talking to my dad, I stood up and I went up there, and the things we were talking about was still going through my head, and I was thinking about how he was going to die soon, and he was not going to see my son, who he had predicted we were going to have a son because he had a dream about it before we even had an ultrasound. And so, anyways, I was standing there thinking about everything, and the music started to play that we picked, and I was looking down like a fool. And I was looking down while she was walking down the aisle, and I had to have somebody say, "Aaron, look up." And I looked up, and I saw her walking, and she was so beautiful. And I thought about how beautiful she looked, and briefly thought about why I was looking down. I never really thought about how, in that moment at least, that was going to come back to bite me really hard. Because even though I love her, she would never let me live that down. And I don't blame her. It's supposed to be her day, really. So after we got married, we went outside and took pictures, and I held her and we kissed. And we didn't have anybody to watch our kids, so we had to take our kids on our honeymoon with us. It just gets worse. So we didn't have that to look back on. And over time, my father died, and I was going to move to Mississippi, and she came with me, of course, because she loved me, even though she didn't want to go. God bless her for doing that. But she came down there with us, and my son was born in Mississippi, in the same hospital that I was born in. And I was a young father, and I was a fool, and I was going through a lot mentally because I had just lost my father, and those are not excuses for what I'm fixing to say. It's just I try to reason with myself, like, why would I do something like that? Because it was wrong, and I'll answer for it when I die. But I left marks on my son, And I'm a piece of shit for that. He was so small, and he didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve that at all. He's a small little baby. And my wife forgave me for it, and it never happened again. I was, you know how they have, like, women go through that, parents in general go through that phase where, like, you have evil thoughts cross your mind, and you're angry, and you're tired, and it's a hard time. You're always tired. Again, not an excuse. Definitely not an excuse. And I hate myself for it every single day because I love my son. His name's Levi, by the way. Levi Hudson, who I named his middle name after my father, Mark Hudson. And so that caused a lot of, so me looking down and then leaving marks on my son as an infant. And then we moved from Mississippi back to North Carolina, and I got a job with a plumbing company. And me and my wife were baptized together in Mississippi. That was one of the positive things about Mississippi, is we found faith in Christ together. And when we moved to Randolph Drive, I was working for the plumbing company, and I was paying the bills, and I thought everything was good. But then I got back to smoking weed because I found some weed in a bag under our bathroom. And I thought to myself, like, I should not smoke this. I should just throw it away. But I succumbed to the temptation, and I started smoking again. And then I immediately started going back to playing games and doing pointless stuff that didn't matter. And so we lived there for 11 months, 12 months. We lived there for a year because the last bill that I had with that company, that rental company, was a full rent payment. So there was nothing more than that. So if I had been there any less time, they would have billed me for the months that were on my lease, even though I would have moved out sooner. If I had moved out at 8 months, they would have billed me for 9, 10, 11, 12 months. So four more months of the total rent. But there was only one rent payment left. And that house had a bullet hole in it, and it was next to a family that liked to party pretty much every night. And we had young children, so they were always waking up at night, and it just wasn't an ideal living situation. So after that house, and this is back in North Carolina, we moved back in with my mother because we didn't have anywhere else to go. And as soon as I moved in with her, COVID happened, and I was let go from my plumbing job. And so I lost a lot of money in that time that I was trying to find another job. And then I went back to working at the car wash, Express Car Wash, which I had always worked at. And in that time, I succumbed to another drug addiction. And I failed my wife in that aspect because I didn't I wasn't strong and I wasn't a leader, and I succumbed to that temptation, and I led her down a bad path because, of course, she's my wife and she just is going to follow me. That's what your wife will do. If you start doing bad things and making bad decisions, you're very likely that your wife will too. Bad decisions being a drug addiction. And so that caused a lot of turmoil and strife. Being strung out is not okay. It's not the place to be. It will destroy you. And in that time, well, I should say on my behalf, I struggled with a porn addiction, and that broke a lot of trust between me and my wife. So if you're married, do not do that. It ruined our intimacy and caused a lot of hurt for her and for me because I felt awful after doing it. She would catch me in the middle of the night and she would be embarrassed and so would I. So she would go lay down and then wake up in the morning and she'd be mad at me all day and I'd wonder why. And then she'd tell me. And, and then I'm like, oh, yeah, I really messed up. It's not okay. I'm saying a lot of the bad stuff that happened because it's easy to remember the bad, especially now when that's all I'm reminded of is all the bad stuff. But like being baptized and going to church with her, and when we lived at Randolph Drive, we read the Bible together and we spent time with our children, and I watched her nurture them, and I loved her. I did. I still do. I love her so much. And I can't explain why I made those bad decisions. And I say to myself now, if I could go back, hindsight's 2020. If I could go back, I would seriously hurt myself because I was making mistake after mistake, letting all the good get drowned out by the bad. So, but we laughed together. We spent time, you know, where we could spend time because we were with our kids a lot and we didn't have people to watch our kids besides my mom, and she was always working, and my wife's parents weren't very trustworthy. My wife's mom was emotionally abusive to her as a child, so she was reluctant to give my kids over to her, fearing that she would treat them the same way she treated my wife when she was little. And her father was on drugs a lot, so there was no way he was going to watch him. And those three people were really the only people in our lives that could watch our kids for us. So we spent a lot of time just being with our kids, and in the hustle and bustle of being parents, it when you don't have somebody to watch the kids and tend to your relationship, it will fall apart. And it did. And you add all the addiction and turmoil and betrayal of sexual lust addictions that I had, and it adds up. And in the time that we were on drugs. I was failing her as a husband, and she went seeking after another man. And I'm just as guilty of, you know, seeking after other women, because even though they were just on my phone, it doesn't make it any different. The only difference is, in my opinion, seeing someone you love being held by, or kissed by, or being, other things by, is really hard to see. And that was a punishment for me. It's like God was punishing me in that way. It was my fault. I blame myself. If I had treated her better, and I had her trust, and I had been stronger and not succumbed to addiction, none of that would have taken place. She wouldn't have felt like she needed to go to another man. So after that happened, of course, I threatened the divorce court, and she was crying to her family saying, "I'm going to lose my husband." And I heard her cries, and I was like, "I will forgive you. You've forgiven me for my porn addiction. So I have to look past all of this, and I have to love you through it. And if you're willing to love me, I'm willing to love you and forgive you, even though it was really difficult." That guy sent me pictures of them, like I said, kissing and hugging and other things. And the other things were really bad. And they were hard to see, but so was her watching me at night do the things I was doing with my phone and my dick in my hand. Sorry. Which is not okay. So after that, she decided to move into her own place, and she was trying to tell me in subtle ways that she wanted separation. And my mother had moved away back to Mississippi in that time, so I didn't have anywhere to go. And so she let me stay with her and our kids, which just made things more confusing because she was trying to separate from me, and I was still there because I didn't have anywhere to go. And I mistook it for, we're going to work things out. And I was so wrong, because that's not what she wanted. She needed time apart. We needed time to fix our relationship. But it was also difficult because she was always working to make the rent, and my kids didn't have anyone to watch them. So I was there watching my kids while she would go on business trips and go to work, do her job. And I was out of work at that time. And to me, I was trying, I assumed that she was doing good enough with her job, that she was making rent, but I realized like I could be helping in some way. She was gone a lot, out working. She had to drive around to different stores every day. Then she started her own business to try to make more money in an easier way on her own. And I got a part-time job in that time. And in the time that she started her new business, she started to fall behind on rent. So I sold the car that my dad helped me get. It was a relatively nice car. So I figured that's a way to make money. So I sold my car, and I paid the rent for that month, and I should have saved the rest of the money just in case, but when you have that money in your hands, it just flies, you want to go spend it. So I paid that month's rent, and she didn't really like allude to, hey, you need to save the rest of that money. But I did have, I sold my car for 8,000. The rent was 2,000. So that left me with 6. And then I had to buy another car so that I could make it to this part-time job. And I spent $4,000 on a car, 4,500. So that left me with $1,500. And so that money flew out of my hands. It wasn't enough to pay rent either. It was $1,500. The rent was $2,000. It was pretty close. But then Emily was making, my wife is Emily, was making money in that time. So I think I paid a bill or two with it. I got food. I got, some gifts for the kids to make them happy. And in the time that she was going on business trips, she ended up being with another man. And he was a Marine, or is a Marine, and he's older. He's 35. I was 27 at this time, 26, 27. She's a year older than me, so she was 28. And I figured out the hard way about that relationship. She had fallen asleep one night, and her phone was still open, and I opened the phone. I went through Snapchat, and I found her talking to him. And I was so angry and heartbroken. And again, hindsight's 2020. Like, I should have just let her sleep. I should have just let her sleep and dealt with it the next day. But I had to tell her, like, right that second, that I knew, and that was a mistake. I let wrath overcome me, and I woke her up, and I immediately started to cry, and I was packing my stuff, and I was going to leave, and the cat was out of the bag at that point. But I love her so much. Again, like, it's hard to see, and you don't want that to happen. You don't want to see that. You don't want to know that that's going on and that it's gone to that extent. Because it had gone pretty far at that point. I knew there was something going on, which is why I wanted to get her phone so badly while it was open. I knew the way she was treating me, looking at me, not wanting to be close to me. I knew there was something going on. When I would pick her up from the airport, she has blankies. And I always thought that was so cute about her. She had her blankie, and she would be wrapped up in it while we were on the way home, kind of trying to protect herself keep herself shielded, because she knew, like, she had something to hide. She didn't, and I could see that. I could see that she had something to hide. And I knew something was going on. And so I found out. After that, the arguments got really bad because I felt like she didn't love me anymore, and she was always angry with me because I wasn't working a good job. I wasn't making ideal money. I was making at best, $700 a check, and if that. I was in school for IT at the time as well, so I moved from full-time to part-time right at that time. That everything came out and I found out, and so we were getting by pretty hard. And her name was on the lease, but mine wasn't. So she ended up having a hard time with her business partner, and he was across the country in California. She wasn't getting any help. I was working at the car wash part time. I was in school. She was going on business trips, and I would stay with the kids and take care of them. And was trying in the midst of it all, to take care of them and do right by them. So when the payments failed, which $2,000 a month for an apartment is crazy, and it's not easy, especially when I'm making $300 or $400 a check. That's nowhere near $2,000, and the money she was getting was just enough to make rent every month. And then eventually that kind of fell apart because her business partner was not helping her. So she ended up getting an eviction notice, and the kids were looking at not having anywhere to go. So my mother decided to move back to North Carolina in the midst of all of that to potentially have something secured so the kids could be somewhere. And my wife told me she was going to take a trip to New Jersey. And she said, I'll be back in a week. And she said, we're coming back to you. And we hugged each other and we cried. And she was telling me stuff like, I'll always love you as the father of my children. It was hard on her to see me not be able to provide. And it was hard for me to know that things were falling apart. And I fully expected her to be back in a week because I was moving into an apartment with my mother, which is not ideal. But now I have a good job and I'm making good money, and I can save money, and if I needed to, I'm making enough money I could afford somewhere, but the rent would be more than half of my check every month. So it would be really hard to get by. North Carolina is not cheap to live in. But she moved to New Jersey with a Marine couple that lives on base. And so she's there rent free with my kids. And my kids are happy, which I'm happy about. But that Marine, he's in the Marine Corps. So if he ever wanted to go on base, he would have free leisure to do that whenever he wanted, as long as he wasn't in dereliction of his duties, as long as he requested time off or whatever. So, I've been trying to ascertain whether or not she would give me another chance. Over the 2 months that she's been gone now, she's told me she's coming back 3 or 4 times, and then every time the time comes, she never comes. And I miss my children. I wish I could hug them. I could really use a hug from my daughter Bailey and my son Levi right now. I miss them. And I know what you're probably thinking, if anybody's watching this, is like, well, you're just a piece of shit. You didn't provide for your family. Fair enough. But what I do know is that I love them and that I am capable of taking care of them in the position that I'm in now. I'm making good money. I would die for my wife or my children in an instant. I would give my life for them in an instant. I would give my wife my entire check if she asked me to. I would do absolutely anything and everything to support them. And we still message each other, but she's telling me she needs space, and her mother's never liked me, so I'm sure she's telling her that she's better off with that Marine. And again, he has free reign to come onto her base, on the base she's living on, anytime he wants. And so she tells me she's not with him, but it's hard to believe, especially with the past where she's lied to me about having relationships before. And it's hard for her to trust me when I say that I'm doing better, and I'm healthy, and I'm physically, mentally, and spiritually the best that I've ever been. And she has a hard time trusting me, and I have a hard time trusting her. And it's really difficult because I love her so much. And I failed at a lot of points. And I go back and I look at pictures of my kids and us, and I break down because I'm like, you're such an idiot for doing all the things that you did. You've done this to yourself. It's definitely a hard pill to swallow, but I'm definitely swallowing it. Like I said, I know that I love them more than anything in the world, and I would do anything to have them back. I would make any sacrifice I needed to have her love me again and have her trust me again, and to hug her and look her in the eyes and hear her say, I love you again. Definitely very sad, a lot. It's hard when you're around your children pretty much every day and around your wife, and then all of a sudden they're all gone in the blink of an eye, and you fully expected them to come back, but that doesn't happen. It's hard letting go. And again, I wish you would trust me and hear my words when I say and make my promises. Like, I would never let that happen again. I would do everything in my power to support you and make sure you're taken care of. And I'm in that position now that I can do that financially and physically and spiritually. And it's a lot of too late, Aaron. That's my name. Her telling me, too late, Aaron. You know, you had 7 years to do that. And I did. And I guess, you know, she's not wrong. And I did this to myself. And it's hard because I hate myself. And self-loathing is a dangerous place to be in because you start to think to yourself, maybe it's just better if I'm not here. You know, I've tried to be better and to do better and to get a good job and do the right thing, and I'm being told it's too late, and being told to go date other girls and try to find another girl to love, but I'll never love a woman the way that I love her. I watched her carry my children. I watched her nurture them and take care of them. I love her so much. And I don't have the luxury of, and it is a luxury at this point to me, of taking my own life. Number one, because I know that if I did that, I would immediately wind up in hell. I'm a Christian, and I firmly believe that overstepping my bounds and taking the right of God to take your life when He so chooses is making yourself God, and you don't make that choice for yourself. Um, but also, first and foremost, my children will need me someday, even if it's not right now. And I know that. But I definitely don't want to keep going every day crying and hating myself. It's not a healthy place to be in. And I'm trying to be good, be understanding, and listen to her and trying to give her space. I really want to do it though. It's pathetic of me to cry, so I'm not going to do that. I've done enough of that today. Um, Today's Sunday, so I did go to church and I listened to the Word of God and saw all the happy families there sitting around, and I cried about that and heard about how Jesus weeps when you grieve and how it breaks His heart that your heart is broken. So that gives me some hope that He cares about me and maybe He has a plan for me. But I just pray to God that that plan is for me to be able to support my family and to have them back. I'm not in a good place. I know I keep saying that. It's like, I don't know what else to talk about now. I've kind of talked about everything I can. And I've done this, thank goodness, with nobody listening. I just hope that, people can understand what it's like to go through something really difficult and to hear someone else talk about the things that they went through, and not, I'm sure there's other people out there that are going through much worse things than me, and it doesn't make it any easier, but I know that, you know. I'll probably delete this. I don't know. I want my son and my daughter to know that I love them very much and I care about them very much. And that I'm sorry that I wasn't a better father. And sorry I ever got in your face when I was angry. And I love you very much. Oh, how I wish I could hug my daughter right now and hug my son and hug my wife because I love them all. I don't know what's going to come next. I just like if this is the last time anybody sees a video of me, I just hope they know that I'm sorry for ever failing you. I'm I'm very sorry. I wish I could change it. I can't go back in the past and change it. All I can do is try right now to be a better person and to be here for my children when they need me and hopefully be here for my wife if she ever decides to love me again. I really just want some rest. I go to sleep and I think about holding her close to me and looking at her in the eyes, and hearing her say, I love you. And hearing my children say that they love me. I miss them so much. And I wish I could tell them that I'm sorry. I love you, Bailey. And I love you, Levi. And I love you, Emily. More than you'll ever know. I don't want to say goodbye. So I'll say, I'll see you in heaven. Or I'll see you again, hopefully. Um, it's a bit of my sadness coming out, it just comes in waves. I'm a broken man. You're looking at a broken man. This is when I wish I had my father. Like I said, I would listen to what he had to say. I would take it to heart and I would run with it. It's, it's very draining and I want some peace. I want some Want to feel loved again. Guess I don't deserve love. I love my children. I just wish so badly I could tell them that right now. Guess I'll go now. I love you very much.